Greetings once again, and welcome to another edition of Unstoppable Mindset. Today, we get to visit with Anquida Adams. And Anquida, among other things, describes herself as a multipreneur. I want to get more information on that. It is amazing how we always create these new terms, but I think it probably makes sense. She has the A.L.A. brand, and under that are a lot of different things, and she's going to tell us about that. So I'm not going to spoil any of her fun, at least not yet. We may try later just for grins, but for right now, Anquida, seriously, welcome to Unstoppable Mindset. We're really glad you're here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Michael. I am super excited about this actual interview today. I know that we've been talking for a little bit, and I love your excitement, and I love what you're doing and what you're continuing to do for people with disabilities within our space. So I'm really excited to be here, and I thank you for having me. And I guess going to the question that you had given me around like
Multipreneur, yeah, well, that's a good one. But first of all, what is your disability?
Okay, so I am neurodivergent.
Okay.
I have I'm dyslexic, and then I have dysgraphia. So for me, it's more of like, how do I navigate the big world of like having a business and then being dyslexic and having dysgraphia is kind of sort of like, that's a big thing to have, which owning all the things that I do. So it's
And
kind of sort of, yeah.
And dysgraphia is what?
Dysgraphia.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of writing. So like for me, with my dysgraphia, I literally leave out articles when I'm writing. So yeah, that's how I.
So,
So it's pretty much so dyslexia is around reading, and then dysgraphia is around writing.
uh-huh. So you deal with writing challenges and you deal with input challenges from reading with dyslexia.
Yeah, so like it's not like I cannot read, but it's like my brain can go within spaces of different levels of it. So if I read something, for me, okay, it can go several different ways. That for my dyslexia, I don't know about everybody else. I think everybody's different. So for me, like it can go in many different ways for me. Like, oh, they may be talking about this right here, but it's not that, or it just depending on like if everything. I always have to, how do I put it? I always have to like clarify. Like, hey, let me clarify the meaning of what this means. What did you mean by XYZ?
Uh-huh.
So
Well,
yeah.
so when did you learn that you had dyslexia and dysgraphia?
Um, so I guess my story starts out with my mom and I and my brother, my younger brother, we moved to California, Oakland, when I was younger, kindergarten pretty much. And I did okay in school because still have my report cards from when I was little. I got it from my mom a long time ago, but we moved back to California like my second or third grade year, and moving from California to Mississippi, the learning styles were so totally different. Where it was kind of hard for me to actually navigate it. So my teacher put me in special needs classes, and when I got into special needs classes, my new teacher said, you're not supposed to be in here. It's just you need help in other areas of teaching you how to actually navigate. I think because I stayed in those, she told me she was going to help me get out. And so I stayed in for a year and a half, and then I got out like maybe 2 years in. So they usually put you a year behind. So I got finished with school and was in regular classes, but until I got into college, that's when I learned that I had dysgraphia, dyslexia and dysgraphia. So yeah.
Did you suspect there was something different ahead of time? I mean, so they put you in special needs classes and they said you didn't really belong there, but
Yeah.
nobody was really diagnosing or figuring out what was going on with you, or what?
Because I was a child, and that's why we'll talk about that later. That's why I want to advocate for parents and making sure that the kids understand the journey, because I think where I was, because my mom, I used to surprise my mom all the time. She used to say, I was a kid in an adult's body. And so it's kind of weird because, but she did not explain, they didn't explain to me all the processes. Some adults did, some adults didn't. But I think if along the way, if I would have been told the process, I could have taught them how to navigate me from that time. And I think that if I would have gotten a lot more help, I could have like, and then plus it's Mississippi. I'm not to be funny, but like there, I guess the way that we're taught, especially in public schools, because I went to a public school and I went to a private school in my college years. In public schools there, it's kind of sort of I don't know, like most schools in the United States, they prep you for to take a test, and it's always about testing. And so it wasn't really about like how do you learn, but we were always prepped. And in my remembering, we're always prepped for the test.
Yeah. And the result is that you really didn't get the education that you needed as such.
Yeah.
And no one diagnosed what was going on. And that happens so often. I've talked to a number of people here on Unstoppable Mindset who said they were, for example, on the autism spectrum, and they didn't know it, or even people who said that they discovered they were dyslexic or neurodivergent in some other way, and they didn't discover it until their 30s and 40s, and some of them figured it out themselves.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it takes a while because again, when you're in a mode of like exploring of who you are, it takes the time for you to like kind of figure it out. Like, okay, well, you know, most of us, especially most people who are undiagnosed, or just navigating through dyslexia or whatever type of disabilities, most of the time, like you're working with it and you're like, okay, you don't even think that it's a disability because you're just pushing through. And so when you do get tested, you're like, oh, I didn't know that. You know, I just thought it was a regular thing that everyone else has, and I'm just learning how to like navigate through that thing that everyone, I'm thinking in my head, my story that everyone else had.
Yeah. And it
So yeah.
really wasn't that way at all, but it took you a
No.
long time to discover that.
Yes.
But at least you eventually did. That had to be some sort of a relief or give you some satisfaction to figure out what was really going on that in reality made you different.
Yeah, so even in college, what it was more of like, how do we help you with navigating this space? So there was a lot of like teaching me how to like read in a way where it's like, so my brain, this is how my brain works in reading. So I would have to go through, because my brain works so fast, I'll have to go through with my hands once, and then the next time highlight everything except the articles, and then take an actual piece of paper and with like fold it in half, and then go my brain will scan the words really fast throughout the actual book or paper, whatever. And that's how I literally I'm able to retain some stuff. So that's how I began to learn how to to make sure that I comprehend or I got everything down, because it was too much to like read it. And so I had to like do it takes a long time, but it helps me out, and I can, you know, I get it then.
Yeah. But as I said, it had to certainly be a relief. And did you feel like once you figured all this out, you started to make a whole lot more progress in terms of being able to do things and moving forward with your life?
Well, I mean, so I didn't. So in high school, I learned how to like, especially in our writing class. I had one teacher, I remember her. She's like, if you don't know how to spell a word, and I think that's probably what helped. That makes it worse. She's like, if you don't know how to spell a word, create a sentence that describe the word. And I think that's pretty much. I've had teachers on the way, to, and that's to give tips like that or other tips to kind of help out with, you know, writing or with, you know, or reading or whatever. So I think that we people who have dyslexia, we're given all these tips, but it does not help us when we're until we learn how to navigate ourselves. It doesn't help us until we're actually in the situation, and those tips sometimes don't work, because again, you have to learn how to navigate it at that particular time. I think I had a conversation with a person a year ago, and I was trying to ask him to help me with a project that I'm doing. And he was like, well, I pay a lot for my child to go to a school, and they teach him a lot of how to like learn through, you know, his disabilities. And I looked at him and I said, I'm a product of that. I was like, they can give us tricks and trades and stuff like that, but if the spaces that I'm supposed to be in and the workforce are not equipped to work with me, those tricks and trades don't work. So I think that there's a deeper conversation when it comes to disabilities, and then also disabilities and inclusion within the workforce.
It sounds like, just the way you're describing it, that they sort of suspected that you happened to be a person with dyslexia, but they weren't talking to you about it or really addressing the issue.
Yes. All the help that I've gotten, they weren't addressing the issue. They were just giving me things to get around it or to survive.
So they kind of knew it was there, but they weren't telling you or helping you with it.
Well, they didn't give me the tools and resources that's particularly aiming towards the root of the problem. They just tried to like do the surface level, put a band-aid on it, and like, okay, this is the best way I can teach you to survive in the world. Go out there to do your best.
Do you think they actually figured out that you had that you were a person with dyslexia, though?
I mean, again, because I was a kid, and because I knew certain parts and I didn't know every part of it. I advocate now with any disabilities that parents make sure that their child has a part into it, even if they don't know the language, because the language is more bigger. It's like a big vocabulary for them. At least they know like what it is, and then also like, and they know a definition of like what it is, and then they're able to make it applicable in their lives to like be able to like, you know, navigate it. Like we could say for instance, if I have this word dyslexia and I don't, and I know that's what I am, so let me help me to figure out what type of other community people that I can be a part of that's like me, that can help me out. And then when you do have tests, you have to tell me everything about the test, but let me know at my capacity of where I am at as a child, where I'm at, and then also where you guys are wanting to take me. Because I think like the education institution, and also the teachers and also the parents, do not allow that child to have I don't what executive like how do I put this? They don't allow the child to have like some type of executive like opportunity on life.
They don't want you to be your own advocate or
Pretty much.
yeah. But again, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but am I interpreting it right though, that they probably really knew that you had dyslexia, but they weren't okay. And that's so unfortunate. You know, and I know, and so many people with disabilities who get involved in advocacy when we're talking about the individualized education plan, the IEP and so on.
Yeah.
They don't want the kids to be involved in that. And the kids are the first ones who should be involved, because if we don't learn to advocate for ourselves, then how are we going to truly learn and understand and also recognize that we're okay?
Yes. And that is why I do the work that I do, and lead first with self-advocacy in whatever manner that I'm connecting with, because I want to make sure that most people like understand like, hey, once you understand yourself and navigate yourself, it's easy to navigate yourself in the world around you. And that's why I'm like, this is very important for the parents to allow the kids to be a part of the process. I think with you, I know like you have lived with your body, and I have lived with my body this whole time, so we kind of know what's going on, or we probably didn't know how to articulate at that time, but at least we could like, if we got hints to explain, we would probably be able to actually tell our parents, like, this is what I needed.
Well, I think I was fortunate because my
Okay.
parents were very open and honest about me being blind.
Okay.
Um,
That's another story. That's another type of disability.
yeah, it's a different issue, and I appreciate that. But I think they were very upfront, and they were perfectly willing for me to explore and sometimes take risks, and they took risks by letting me do that. But
Oh,
that is a different story than what you were having to address and deal with. And no one was really helping you and being upfront. And it's so unfortunate that they didn't do that. But
yeah.
that happened.
That happened, yes. I'll
And
tell you,
never,
but I got a chance to have other risks in my life where my parents allowed me to, because so I was dyslexic, or I have a disability, but at the same time I was wise. Remember I told you earlier, my mom said that I was an adult in a kid's body. So
Mhm.
for me, they weren't helpful. It wasn't that much help on that side, but I was really wise, and I had I had wisdom and then street smarts, both, if you would like put it together. So it kind of helped me out a lot.
But it also sounds like your parents probably didn't know what to do and they weren't getting
Oh yeah.
help either, which is so unfortunate. But I'm glad you turned out the way you did and that you really appreciate your parents, which is of course part of the whole process.
Yes. Cool.
So you moved, well, you were in California, then you moved back to Mississippi. And
Yes.
where did you go to college?
So I actually went. This is that dyslexia and that mindset of like trying to find who I am or whatever. So my first year and a half, I went to Oakwood University, and it's a historically Black school, and that's why I
Hmm.
told you I had a space where they took their time and they helped me out with understanding enough for me to get it, so I can actually move with my actual dyslexia. They gave me tools to move through my dyslexia. But that was a school where literally I learned like all types of leadership skills there. While I was there, I was part of several choirs. I was a part of an ensemble. I was a a chaplain's assistant, where we had to like during chaplain time do the whole program, and then also the different buildings we were assigned to for like chapel for the different residential individuals that were on campus. So I got a chance to do a lot. I was a part of the actual president ambassador space, where we were the first when emotional intelligence first came out. Our president for our ambassador space like made sure that we had like classes with we did classes on emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
So I'm saying all that because it helped out later on in some of the stuff that I do. So I learned a lot at that first school that I went to, and then I stayed there for 2 years. It got really expensive, and so I went to UAH for a semester because I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. uh,
UAH is
University of Huntsville, Alabama.
okay.
So the school, Oakwood University, is in Huntsville, Alabama. It's a historical Black school for Seventh Adventist.
Got it.
Yes. And so I went to UAH for a semester. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and at that time, my major was um physical therapy, because my high school year of college, I mean, high school year of my senior year of high school, I worked at a PT clinic, and I was a PTA, and then I was also that's what I told you I was doing a lot of amazing stuff and I didn't even know it. So I was a PTA, and I was a administrative assistant at the actual clinic. And then so I was like, okay, well, I've liked this. Let me go into my school. And so at my school, I was on the track of doing a year and a half at 2 years at Oakwood, and then finish off my PhD at Andrews University, and that's another school that was Seventh Adventist school, and that was a mixed school of everyone.
Is that
So
also in Alabama?
no, that was in Michigan.
So you moved around.
No, I didn't go there, but that was the plan. But I didn't go there.
Oh,
So it got too expensive for me. So I went to UAH and for a semester to kind of figure out what I was going to do. And then after UAH, I kind of went to Chicago and stayed there for 6 months, came back home, went to Michigan, stayed 6 months, came back home. And then last time I came back home to Mississippi, that's where I'm originally from. I graduated from a community college with honors and with 23 hours. And I went there and I changed my major to psychology and elementary education. And so that summer I went to Delta State University, and I was getting started with my elementary education degree. And that's when I found out during the summer school that Bush 2, that was president then, he was talking about inclusion. I was like, I can't do that, because I was like, it's too much. It will be too much for me. And so I left there. I finished off my semester there that summer, and I left Delta State, that was in Delta, Mississippi, and I went to Mississippi State, and that's where I finished off my degree in sociology, gender studies, and leadership skills. So I found my niche when I went to Mississippi State. I'm really good at understanding like society. Like I can sit back and kind of figure out like what's going on. And so for me, I've done it all my life, but until I got into the classes of sociology, gender studies, and leadership skills, and I took some psychology classes and also behavior science classes while I was there. But it felt like home, and so that's how I got into the work that I do now, because of the sociology and me pairing sociology and psychology together for sociopsychology, for me to figure out how do I help the world. And so for me, learning throughout the years about disabilities and what I did not know until like a year or two ago about the 8 modalities of intelligence, and which schools do not teach. And for me, within the 8 modalities of intelligence, I possess 2 of the 8 modalities of intelligence: intra and interpersonal intelligence. So I'm good at going into spaces, understanding the culture, and then learning how to create a better space within that space. So like, again, organizational development. So these are things that they don't teach in the schools, and these are the things where, you know, with my understanding, even without disabilities, when I do our organizational development work, I make sure that when I'm doing leadership development, I ask the leader like what type of intelligence that they have. I do an assessment to kind of figure it out, and then I help them to understand their actual client, not their client, but the employees, their direct reports, because you sometimes even at work, there's several different ways that people learn, and there's different ways that they actually interact, but they don't teach us that in school about the 8 modalities of intelligence. So I'm doing it in the workplace, and I'm trying to also do it within the actual school systems of teaching them like how to actually help the students learn through their 8 modalities. And hopefully the school systems will catch on to it, because if I would have known that, even with my dyslexia, I would have done a whole lot better instead of going into physical therapy. You know, that's pretty much a part of my gift, but the main 2 areas I'm really great at, like seeing and developing systems. And if we go into 8 modalities, everyone has a different modality that they can go into, that they can figure out a field that is best for them per their modality.
Tell me a little bit more about the modalities. You said there are 8 modalities. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about more what that is?
Yeah, sure. I can do that for you. Let me pull it up. So I know it's intra intelligence. Those 2 different modalities: intra and interpersonal, intra and inter intelligence. Then there's kinesiology. Then there's, let me pull it up. So it's 8 of them, but I know mine. Let's see.
Well, and while you're doing that, so when did you actually graduate from college?
So I graduated in 2010.
Okay. And So you have a bachelor's. Did you go and get an advanced degree at all?
So I literally so like for me, so after that I left Mississippi State, and then I went to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I started my clinical mental health counseling degree. And
Okay.
I thought I wanted to be a counselor, but then I was like, I told you I find out systems really quick to figure out what I want to do. If I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. And what I found within the, no disrespect for counselors and therapists, it just wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a rigid, it was a how they set everything up. Like it's all about not being sued, and and the second part is it was all about, not allowing the person to navigate their own situation. Like with the therapist, you're there and you're asking all these questions, but it's just it's a robust or like robotic way of doing it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I thought if I did go into it, and like I'm doing right now, I'm doing coaching, so I get to like do things that I want to do within the space. So like say for instance, if I have a client, like one person I did coaching with, she dealt with a lot of internal things, and of like I don't know if I can say it on here, but like she dealt with a lot of internal things. And
Okay.
so for her, we went walking, and for me, I'm very intuitive, and with walking, it allowed that person to like walk and talk.
Mm-hmm.
As they're walking and talking, what most people don't connect with, the different types of techniques that you can use, especially how I connect my techniques with the intuitive way that I think, and also connect with that person. With her, we were doing three things. One, she had never, out of all the therapists, she told me after our session, she said out of all the therapists that she's seen, that they have never gotten out of her what I've gotten out of her at that moment. Two, while we're walking, I think most people don't understand perception, and also how you connect. So I call it the human, human emotional set points. So
Okay.
as we were walking, she was literally not being triggered, but being triggered in a good way of bringing back those memories of what she was saying. But then also she was metaphorically saying what she was saying, expressing how she was expressing the actual thing or the trauma that she was going through. But then she was still, it was like she was, whatever burden she had, she was unlifted and leaving it there as she walked every step she took. So it was
Uh-huh.
like a lot of things going on at the same time. And so as we were talking, and plus how I connect with my client, I was able to like hold the container for her as we were walking, as we were talking. So it allowed her to like elaborate on some of the things that that happened to her or happened with her throughout her lifetime. And so she was like, she wanted to do more sessions with me, because there was a lot of things that were happening at the same time where she was able to release and forgive, and also think of ways that she could, be better because of the things that have happened. So I say all that to say, like, so going through the program, I realized that it wasn't for me because I wasn't able to actually go outside of the parameters of what psychologists or
Mm-hmm.
therapists do. And so I did a whole year within that program, and I took what I need to take because I use again both psychology and sociology within my therapeutic
Sure.
sessions. So after that, after Chattanooga, I left there and went to Texas. Stayed there for 4 years, and I thought I wanted to go back into sociology, and I was going to start my master's in sociology. And then I figured, I was like, no, I don't want to do that again. So I stayed there for 4 years, but I only did one semester for that, to notice that I didn't want to do it. And within being there, I was like, okay, well, I don't think this place is for me. So I moved again to Seattle. I've been here for going on 10 years now this year. And as I got here, I got into corporate, and I knew when I got into corporate, some of the things that were happening when it came to leadership, when it came to culture. I was like, this is where I want to plant my seed in, like, doing the work of making sure that we do better with as leaders, we do better with our employees. And so I actually started my master's degree in it was organizational psychological development. And as I went through that program, I don't want to be rude to them, but like I knew that I wanted to do the work, but at the same time, there was a lot of things that were going on at work and that was going on within that actual organization, well, within the program, that I wasn't able to deal with the capacity of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I finished that, but I was the only one out of the group that actually started my consulting firm. And with all the stuff that I've learned within that first year, I was able to kind of hone into what part of organizational development that I want to go into. And they didn't help me with creating my business. I did everything on my own and creating all the levels. But by being in that program, it allowed me to understand the different, again, I tell you, I can just go into a space and learn a lot of stuff and learn a foundation of things, because I can see systems. And so, like, as I went into that space, I kind of understood, and I went out and created my own system by seeing what they did. And so it kind of helped me out with building out my business. So on a long journey. So yeah. So
you did get your master's degree by the time it was all said and done?
I did not finish that.
You did not finish it. Okay, good. But
every time I went into a space, I guess for me,
school wasn't the right thing.
Well, I mean, it's not that it wasn't the right thing. It was the right thing for the moment that I got the foundation, right, and I got what I needed, and I actually left.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does, with all the other stuff that was going on. So when did you actually start? Well, let me go back. You said you went into corporate. Did you go to work for a company, or did you just start your business?
I worked for several companies, and I'll just be transparent. Like, within this space here and Pacific Northwest, when I first got here, there was less talk around diversity and inclusion.
Right.
And it's a pretty much white cultured space. And me being here and me not getting a memo of like, hey, like, just shrink yourself. And if I didn't get the memo, I didn't care about the memo. So like I learned first off, and being in a corporate space, is that if I did not take up for myself or have self-advocacy around myself, that I would allow other people to actually bully me, or actually be in a space where I felt as though I could not breathe. And when I say when I cannot breathe, it's like, me not being able to actually display my talents and my gifts, not in a show-offy way, but like, for me, my mindset is, I have what I need to do what I need to do. I will do it. And I don't need micromanaging. And if you want to micromanage me, maybe you need to do the job yourself. And so that's not to be ugly about it, but it's like, if you hired me and you know that I can do the job, like, please don't micromanage me. And so I had like those people who tried to micromanage me, or if they didn't try to micromanage me, they would, one person told me, I can make it for her in the company, but not on her watch. She did a lot of stuff that's what I told you, it was a lot of things that was happening. And so I had to deal with that kind of sort of in my program too, where there was a young lady in that program who did the same thing to me also, where it's like she was bullying me, but at the same time, that's when I started to wake up and start to my self-advocacy began much more after those two situations, because I knew that, yes, I speak up for myself, but most people within my demographic group, they don't say anything because they just want to get along and play along so they can kind of like move along. But I knew if I didn't say anything, that the next person that was younger than me came in that position or came in that organization, they will face the same situation that I faced. And I would not be able to look, I don't want to cry. I would not be able to look at myself in the mirror if I wouldn't have said nothing, or if I wouldn't have, did something about it. And most of the adults that were older than, because I when I came into those positions, I was in my early 30s. I was 30 and I was just a baby, kind of, sort of. And so being in those positions and having someone older than me that looked like me, that was brown, tell me, don't rock the boat, or Anquida, don't say anything about it because you're going to make it harder on everybody else. Like, that to me was, that didn't settle with me. And so I got in trouble a lot because I spoke up and I spoke out, because I was like, I could not leave. My motto is, if you go into a place, make sure you leave it better than when you found it. So yeah.
So when did you actually start your business?
So I started my business in 2016.
2016. Okay. And so tell us a little bit about the business. You've got several brands and segments under it. That's pretty fascinating, which is, of course, why you describe yourself as a multipreneur. So tell us about that.
Okay, cool. So within the, like I told you before, like the origins of this, of like, is making sure that organizations, well, let me back up. So A.L.A. brand consists of 3 areas: A.L.A. consulting firm, A.L.A. event planning and management, and A.L.A. foundation. A.L.A. World Foundation, sorry. So I'll go back to A.L.A. consulting firm. A.L.A. consulting firm is a global boutique firm with expertise in social relations, with a human-centered approach to staying, developing, implementing systems on the human side, also the organizational side.
So what does that mean?
So what that means is you might have a problem in 3 areas: the human, the organization, and the process, or both, right? So pretty much we make sure that within that space, we're helping you out with the culture. That's the seeing the systems, helping you out with the systems of your culture, developing that system within your culture, and then implementing what is there. So like, that's what we do within those spaces. So and unpacking that. So 4 different divisions: organizational, social, emotional, psychological development, and their services underneath there. Then the second division is equity, inclusion, diversity, with the social justice lens. And then the third division is entrepreneurship and startup coaching and development. And the last division is the individual, personal, professional, and family coaching and development. So all 4 areas have an intersectionality together because of the person. You as a person creates the subculture of the bigger culture, whether it's within any of 4 of those areas.
So what exactly do you do? How does it work?
So up underneath the organizational development sector, so there's several services, but it's 4 main services. So there's succession planning. I always keep that first, succession planning. And underneath succession planning, there's millennial retention as a strategist. We go in and kind of figure out, the next generation of who's going to be in charge. That's millennials, right? So making sure that we know who within your organization, who are the millennials, and then understanding like, okay, the second part of that is millennial leadership development. So like, with that, when we figure out who's the millennials in the space, we're looking at the bottom, the lifespan of the company. So when you think about the lifespan of the company, you need to make sure within those millennials, how are you doing leadership development with them, and then also tracking them. So then when you're able to bring them in the actual positions when the boomers leave, there you have people that are on a succession plan to actually fill those positions. And not only do you have the people to fulfill those positions, you have an organization that will continue its life force. Because again, if you're not leading or developing your leaders on all levels, it's going to be hard for you to maintain a great company. So that's two of the first two succession planning for millennials. And then the second area of it is our ecosystematic structure leadership coaching and development, and that's for all generations, not just for millennials, all generation. And then the second part of that that's paired with that is the ecosystematic team, structured team coaching and development. Okay. So what happens is that most of the time the leadership get developed, but the team don't, and it's by different people. So we created a program to where you're doing both developments, because if you develop the leader in a manner where they're understanding themselves, and then also understanding how do they lead as a leader, what leadership styles they have, or understanding their actual direct reports, and then also understand themselves, because most of the time most leaders don't have a full understanding of how they impact and imprint their actual direct reports, and that can lead to a lot of retention, where people, their lack of retention, because like pretty much their people are leaving. There's a rotating door in and out. So when the leaders like have their actual space in the world, and their space within that company where they're learning of what they do, because most leaders don't get leadership training. They literally are just pushed into a space because they're great at a actual subject, or they're great at a actual department, or whatever, a trait, and they're not able to actually lead because of that. And I think most of the time that's why you have people in spaces where they're great at what they do, but they don't know how to lead. And so that's why we help within that space. And then when it comes to the teams, you have to feel like you're in a safe space to collaborate and to actually have camaraderie with your peers. So with that, of being in a safe space that that your leader is leading you and in a way where they're helping growing the talent, and the talent feels safe, you're going to have a great department and a great culture within your whole organization. So that's the 4 main areas of coaching and consulting within that space of organizational, social, emotional, psychological development.
So how do you do leadership training? How does that work?
So again, it's a lot of deep diving, first creating awareness with them of their I call it, and I coined it professional patterns, or professional of origins. It's kind of like our family of origins, but it's professional of origins that I created. Most individuals who are in a leadership position, they pretty much mimic the leaders that was before them. And sometimes they picked up good habits, and sometimes they picked up bad habits. And so when they're not developed, they tend to either lean with the patterns that they picked up from their parents, and then the patterns they picked up from the professions of who they worked for. And so when you think about that, that's a lot of things to unpack, and most leaders don't unpack that, and that's why you have a lot of ineffective leaders. And so we work on that inner work of the person first, and then we then work on styles, helping them out with the different types of styles that they can use per their department, of the people that are within their department, because we teach them how to figure out the actual their employee styles, because each style, each person has a different style, so at least adapting 3 styles and doing a mixture of one of those 3 styles to help out with the actual direct reports. Then after that, we start going into other things that they need to learn that could be helpful to them, that they have not learned, but then they want to learn around leadership skills, and especially when it comes to conversational intelligence. That's like embedded in our space of like doing leadership development. So conversational intelligence skills group, it helps the leader to understand how to articulate their thoughts from their feelings, and to be clear and have clarity when they're actually giving their direct reports a clear understanding of what they're asked to do as a task. Not only that, but it helps out with conflict, because most of the time you're dealing with different personalities and different cultures and different ways of living. And so with that, it kind of help out with mediation, because they're kind of sort of the mediation, they're mediating between of their self advocacy of how they lead, and also between the actual person, like of how they is accepting the actual tasks that they're given, because most of the time, again, we all learn in different ways, and teaching them how to actually work with their actual direct report around how they learn, how they are wanting to be led, and then what styles that actually help them into motivating them to do well within the workspace.
So all of this that we're talking about comes under the umbrella of A.L.A. Consulting.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you have a number of people that work with you? Is it just you, or how does that work?
So, and this is what I have to explain to people. I'm in the space of scaling. So how I created my businesses, so by being an entrepreneur, you can have different types of services. Most people tell you to keep it at one space, but what happens is when you do one space, within different quarters, different organizations can not only bring you in. But if I have 4 divisions and I have services underneath each one, it's easy for me to kind of get an actual get picked to like go into any organization different quarters, depending on what services they need, or if there's going to be someone doing it individually. So it helps me out to figure out like how did that work. So because I'm scaling right now, I'll be able to like bring in some more people to do the work with me, and or I have some people that I have on the side, if they need to come in to help me out with it, they can help me out with it. Other than that, I'm the person until I began to scale, and then that's what I'm starting to do. So yeah.
Well, that's cool. Well, the whole issue, of course, is that it's A.L.A. Consulting, and there's nothing wrong with having more than one consultant or people that work with you. So that makes sense. Well, what about?
I knew I wanted to create a bigger organization instead of staying
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense to do that if you can do it and as they would say with franchises, although this is not, but you want to make sure you keep the same flavor and you keep the same process throughout whoever you work with, needless to say.
Yes.
So A.L.A. event planning and management?
Yeah, so A.L.A. event planning and management goes hand in hand with A.L.A. consulting firm, because it is event planning and management for organizations. We hire, retain, and then develop talent. And so we have 4 different layers, 4 different divisions to that one too. So there's the career fair. So we have our signature career fair that we were going to start in 2020, but COVID hit. So we're having to like push it out, and we're going to try to do it this year. But what we have been doing since 2013 is that, because we've owned the actual career fair space since 2013, because we were the only woman event planning and management, career management firm here in Seattle. We did over 48 career fairs for Career Choice. That was the company that chose us to work within their career fairs here in Seattle, and that's how we got started. So by hearing from them of the vendors that wanted more areas, that's when I was like, okay, well, maybe I need to create our signature career fairs, and that's what happened when 2020 hit, and I wasn't able to do it, but
Yeah.
I have to start doing it now. And then the second layer of it is organizational events. Pretty much we do fun employee fun day. And then you don't do any work, we just have fun to create camaraderie, and then camaraderie. And then the second area of that space is team building, and the third area within that space is retreats. And then so the next level of this, I know there's no screen of me showing out the org chart, but the next level, the third level of this is like events. So if you want a 1-day event, 2-day event, or a week event, we can help out with a small to medium events. And the last level is our disabilities and inclusion level, where we do our A.L.A. disabilities transition and resource summit and expo. And then this year will be our first year doing it. And then we have our A.L.A. team, A.L.A. disabilities is Community Connect, and it's like where we get to have people to come together. So if whatever quarter it is, because it's by each quarter after the actual summit, it's put in place so that the organizations who are wanting to create a disabilities and inclusion affinity group, they're able to meet with other organizations around the city to work together to actually help out with their affinity groups. And then we couple that with hiring in people who have disabilities to work with those companies, so that we can kind of create jobs for people with disabilities. And then the third piece of that part, because there's 3 initiatives within disabilities, it's our A.L.A. disabilities talent recruiting and consultancy agency, where we do talent recruiting and consultancy. So that this, for the wraparound summit, there's 2 other things that will help out. So it's not just you just going to a summit and then getting all these things and you're like, oh yay, we're happy. But no, we have 2 other things that will help out. So then you can actually stay on track with being intentional about having a space of, disabilities and inclusion workspace. So if that makes sense, that's pretty much all of that area.
So what is A.L.A. World Foundation?
Okay, so A.L.A. World Foundation comes into play where we're able to, the foundation part is to work with other organizations and spotlighting them of saying, hey, we see you're doing good work. I feel like within the workspace, or within the workforce, we have a lot of people that is quick to say this is what bad this company is doing, and there's no shining a light on the company that's doing well. And so a big part of our foundation is to partner with other companies to make sure that other nonprofits, to make sure that they're seen within the actual workspace of doing whatever they need, that they're doing what they're doing with the individuals that they're working with within the communities they're working with. And then that's part of the foundation. And then another part of the foundation, so it's 2 projects, a project for making sure that organizations being seen. The other project is the Human to Human project, and that's around homelessness. And we're bringing awareness around homelessness in several different ways. So it's 5 phases of that, and it's a lot of process.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go into it.
That's okay. So what is being Anquida?
Oh, so that's like opposite. So I explained it as this. So A.L.A. brand, it creates foundations, and it helps out society with creating foundations and getting started on the right feet on, whatever area that you're working with us. It's just creating that foundation. So being Anquida is actually a space of creating healthy relationships. So you have the foundations, but now you need to learn how to like have an ongoing way of learning how to have those healthy relationships to continue the actual foundation that you have created. So that's what Being Anquida is about. So Being Anquida is a small boutique firm with expertise in relationships. And so within that space of learning about relationship, it starts with you first. Not only does it start with you, it's about understanding that's where the identity intelligence starts out with. So like we created this formula for all of our work throughout our identity intelligence, and that's where identity intelligence for our consulting firm, our A.L.A. consulting firm came from. The root of it came from the actual Being Anquida. Being Anquida is a space where you're able to first have a relationship with yourself first, understand who you are and how to navigate yourself in the world around you. And having identity intelligence creates a place where you can actually understand your shadow side and your light, or your fragmented shadow side and your fragmented light. And what all that means is that we have different duality parts of us. And then if we suppress the parts that we think that, you know, if someone knew about us, would make them run away, then we intentionally or unintentionally do things that will make people not like us, and we don't even know it because we ignore the fact that this is part of our shadow side. If that makes sense. That it's a lot of unpacking.
It does make sense. I think I understand exactly what you're saying, and it does make sense. And you certainly pull a lot of things together, no doubt about it. And clearly you're a happening person that's getting a lot of things accomplished, and you're trying to bring a lot of things into the world. And I hope that you are going to be very successful at scaling. Well, let me ask you, if people want to learn more about you or reach out to you and maybe engage you or in somehow become involved with you, how do they do that?
They can go to our link tree. Our link tree is you can say www.link and then tr.ee and then /a.l.a consulting firm. And it's the same. I know it's a lot, but if you can look there or link, the best way is LinkedIn. LinkedIn, you can get in touch with me really quickly. And then all of what we do is underneath experiences. You can kind of go visit us from LinkedIn from there. And I think that will be the best way. LinkedIn is a whole lot better.
What's your LinkedIn handle?
So it is Anquida Adams. That's pretty much it.
Anquida Adams. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I hope people will reach out. I hope that we've been able to do some good in getting people more acquainted with you and what you do. You are fascinating. You are doing a lot, and that's cool.
I not even all the things that I've done in my lifetime. I know I talked about a lot, but like there's a whole lot of things that I didn't talk about. Being a part of the Commission for People with Disabilities, and then being the co-chair of that, and then being within that space for 4 years, being a part of the Disabilities and Inclusion, the King County Disabilities Developmental Disabilities Board. So right. There's other places that I've done too. So there's a lot.
Well, I think people will definitely learn about that as they go seek you out and investigate you. And I hope they'll do that. And I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to learn some about what you do. And for you who are listening out there, I really appreciate you listening. Please give us a 5-star rating wherever you find Unstoppable Mindset. We are grateful for it. I know Anquida will be grateful for it. And also, if you'd like to reach out to me, please do so. You can reach me at Michael H.I., MICHAELHI, at Accessibe, ACCESSIBE.com. Or you can go to our podcast page, which is www.michaelhingson.com/podcast. And Michael Hingson is MICHAELHINGSON. So michaelhingson.com/podcast. Love it if you go there and listen to some more podcasts and rate us there as well. We really appreciate it. But most of all, I hope that you'll reach out to Anquida. I think that she has offered us a lot of interesting and useful information and a lot of insights, and we should definitely feel free to engage her and use her talents and her skills. And clearly there's a lot of it there. So, Anquida, one last time, I want to thank you for being with us today and coming on Unstoppable Mindset and telling us so much.
Well, thank you for having me. And I'm just grateful to be a part of this space. So thank you again, Michael, for having me.